Call us to order. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, we're doing good. Let me just find my other thing here. This meeting is being recorded. Just everybody remember that, okay? It's important to know that the meeting is being recorded. And I need one more thing here. Just get that out of the way, and I'm going to get that out of the way, and I'm going to click on the Got It button, and I'm going to bring up Agenda. Okay. And now I just got to get this thing out of the way. Oh, bring it over here, come over there, click on that. Now drag that up over here. No, over there, over there, over there. There we go. Okay. All right, so it's September 2021. The first thing we do is our welcome, and I'm looking at Bill. Do we have any new members today?
No.
No. But we do have a member who's been here on Zoom. I don't think, George, have you been here in person?
No.
Physicality?
No.
I feel like I'm, oh, wait, I almost started doing a religious reference, so I got to stop myself. So let's say hello to George.
George.
Okay. George has been with us since about 3 months, 4 months before the break. Yeah. Okay. All right, so we got the welcome out of the way. Next thing would be news. So the first thing I'm going to present is to just let you know that true to form, whenever we have a meeting, Apple schedules some major release event like a day or so after it. So September 14th, Streaming California is their meeting topic. It's available to everybody via Zoom, via not FaceTime,
You get on
YouTube.
Apple TV.
What's the other one?
Apple TV.
Apple TV. So anyway, so there's a whole bunch of stuff they're going to be talking about, and I don't know what they're going to actually say. And let me think here, going forward real quick. Bum, 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 bum. A note of hope, there's only so many letters in the Greek alphabet, so eventually those of us who survive will be having meetings in person, all of us together, hopefully without masks. So masks are sort of fun, actually. And that's all I have for news. Mr. Cartwright, do you have anything you want to share with the members?
Has anybody heard about the legal case going on between the gaming people and...
Yeah, I'd like more information.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about it real quick. I'm going to keep this short. The judge made a ruling Friday, and there were several findings. Most of them went in favor of Apple, so the judge ruled that Apple was not a anti-competitive in nature, so they ruled against that. The judge ruled that, what's their name? Epic. The judge ruled that Epic did violate their terms of service and, in fact, was in breach of contract. And so Epic has to pay Apple millions of dollars, and they have to pay 30% on everything they own from the time they breached the contract to the time they were taken off the store, which turns out for Apple to be some number of millions of dollars, which Apple don't need millions of dollars, but they're going to get it. So that happened. The only thing that Apple was ruled against Apple was Apple has to allow third-party purchases of things instead of through the in-app store. So at some point, if this goes on, you will be able to log into a site and buy an app and buy it from somewhere else and install it on your iPhone. Now that's simplifying what happened, but there's a 90-day window before this gets instituted, and I'm sure Apple's going to appeal. The other guys have already said they're going to appeal, so this will be tied up in the courts for who knows how long. But round one is closed. Yeah.
The implication that I worry about, though, is since they lost that part, and Apple is so secure, and I rely on that, does this mean that by having to allow them on the iPhones, that it weakens our safety?
I don't think so.
Okay.
You will still be able to buy through Apple through the regular in-app purchase system.
Okay.
So you can continue to do that. You don't have to buy one of these other apps through their system.
Okay.
So I think it'll be all right. The judge very specifically addressed that and said she thinks Apple overstated that, which was kind of funny for the judge to make that determination, but that's what the judge said.
Yeah.
So that's out there, and go ahead, Bill.
There was a comment by the judge comparing what Apple should do would be comparable to what Google currently does with their Android systems. You can buy stuff through the Google Play Store, or there's all these other app stores run by other people you can put stuff on if you're brave.
Yeah.
And you don't really care what happens to your device and what gets done to it.
But you don't have to.
Yeah, but you don't have to.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's going to continue, but they're at least phase one of, if you want to call it a phase, is done. The other thing, if everybody's heard about C-SPAM and CSAM and the whole thing about Apple scanning your photos for pictures that are child porn and all that stuff, I don't know if everybody heard, but Apple's put that on hold. They're not implementing those changes right away. So that's not going to be done initially when iOS 15 comes out. If you want to talk about that, that's a long topic we're not going to talk about today, but I can talk about it. If anybody wants to talk to me, I can explain what it is and how it works and why it worked, why it was supposed to work. But the bottom line is nothing's going to change with iOS 15 in that regard when iOS 15 comes out here in the next week or two.
It does sound that the new one is going to allow a little more individual sharing of files and stuff. Make it easier to do that, right?
On iOS 15?
Yeah.
I've been using it for 6 weeks, and it changes a few things there, but they're not significant. You'll be fine using it. I love the way it works, so I think the changes there's some interesting changes, but I don't think they're going to blow you away. They're pretty easy.
Okay.
We're going to talk about that next month.
Thank you.
So in terms of other stuff going on there, the only other things to be aware of is that things that you're going to buy that are made from electronics or use chips, there's going to be supply issues. When there are supply issues, I'm channeling my wife, the economist, supply and demand, Kurt? Okay, so if supply is constrained and demand stays high, what happens to price? Price goes up. So you can see that already. Things that were under $20 on Amazon or Alibaba are now over $20. The supply of things may not be as copious as we're used to having, spoiled North Americans. So just be aware that's going to be a real thing going forward several months.
iPhones too?
TSMC has said they're going to raise the prices of their electronics over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And the TSMC is a supplier of the M1 chip and a lot of other stuff, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just be aware you'll probably have something to do with those required minimum distributions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The automotive industry, if I heard it right, GM has shut their plants down.
So has
Is that
Honda.
true for like a week?
So has Honda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a grandson that interned with a company that makes the machines, that makes the chips, and what they were. Now I don't remember the name of the. Okay, and he's a grunt. He was working from home, and this is in Boston, and he said based on what he saw there, he says they're struggling just to get the chips that do the automation that does the chips.
Yeah.
So he says it's a long haul to get to the point where you're going to be able to really have chips flying out the door.
Okay. One other constraining factor. There was a plant outside of Moline, Illinois, and they made about 80 to 90% of the precursors used to make lubricants in North America. That plant burnt down to the ground into the basement. They don't anticipate having that thing back up and running for at least 2 years. So the other thing that's going on, I mean, how did we, why did they do the aerial bombing of the ball bearing plants in World War II? Well, if you can remove the lubricant, it's almost like you remove the ball bearing. So there's a whole bunch of things that we're going to see. So basically, those of you who have been around, just pretend, it's back in the 70s again, and we got, weird stuff going on with our supply chains. So with that said, Can you think, Mark Georges, can you think of anything else we need to add in the way of news going forward? Pretty much it's been quiet.
Not really.
Yeah, maybe it's a good thing when the people aren't in their offices. They have to stay home and just, okay. Anyway, so we're going to move on to number C, which is for sale and freebies. As I had mentioned before, we started the meeting, to those of us that were present, Sister Louise has brought a box of stuff, and at the break, if you're interested, take a look at the stuff, and whatever people don't take away today, I will go bring with me back home and go through, and I will bring it back next month. Or appropriately recycle, give away, use myself, whatever. Okay. Do you have anything you're selling this month?
Oh, yeah, sure. One thing I didn't tell Mark in my email this week, I've got a Kanto full motion TV mount for wall mounting a TV anywhere from 40 to 80 inches. It's the model number is a PDX 650.
Okay.
The box is 680, but it's a 650. That
Okay.
was, and then I'm also selling a Radeon RX 580 graphics card. Those are good for if you've got a Mac Pro 5.1 or older. You can put those into any PCI slot, and it's got 8 gigabytes of DDR RAM. It's a very good card. It just doesn't recognize a boot screen, so until the drivers load, you get a blank screen.
What if you're putting it into a box running Linux or Windows or Unix?
I have no experience with that. So
Okay.
if you've got drivers for it, for those manufactured for that OS, I imagine it's pretty normal.
So, am I correct in stating that Dana sent Mark Georges an email detailing all of the stuff that you had that you were selling?
At least for the graphics card. I didn't tell them about the TV mount.
Cool. So, remember, those of you who are at home doing Zoom, those of you who are in person, if you have stuff that you want to sell, be like Dan. Send Mark an email with the list, because then we propagate that out to the members who even didn't arrive or didn't attend in person or via Zoom. Plus, you know, they have friends that may be interested.
Now, it doesn't have to be to Mark. It can be to Ambassador. You can
To
send
the
it
ambassador.
to Ambassador.
Yes, let me be more clear. The ambassador at tmgdayton.org.
Yeah, and that's on the last page of our web page. It lists the officers as all of our emails.
The
Okay.
ambassador.
Bill
No, I'm just
Howell-
waving. Oh, you wanted to talk. Yes, ma'am.
Bill Howell on Zoom has his hand raised.
Okay.
Yeah, if anybody has an Epson printer that uses the number 288 cartridge, I have a number of fresh new in the box that they can have, no charge.
Okay.
What's the model number again?
288 is the cartridge number. I've got 4 blacks and 1 box of 3 color and a couple of single color cartridges that are still in the vacuum pack bag.
Okay.
But if anybody's got the
Bill?
use for 288 cartridge,
Bill?
perhaps, then
Bill?
we're more than welcome to these.
Bill? Bill Herrick. Bill Howe. You
Yes.
hear me? Send him an email with the exact model make of the cards. It just makes it so much easier.
Understood.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate you so much for what you do. All right, what else do we have? Anybody else? Going once, going twice? Okay, I will just mention that I have cables for people. If you need printer cables, if you want some more Ethernet cables, I'm looking at Shauna.
I will take them.
Okay, then I will box them up and bring them next month. I have FireWire cables. I have iLink cables. So I will bring an assortment. What are you laughing at?
I love it. That's great.
All right, now Lenore already knows this. There's a game people play when they invite me over to their house. Granted, I don't get invited much anymore, but that's because of COVID, I think. Anyway, but they'll pull out boxes of stuff and say, and what do you use this for, Bill? And I go, oh, that's a Centronics parallel printer cable that you use with a Epson SX160 dot matrix printer and an Apple IIe Platinum. Okay, well, I've almost gotten to the point where I don't want to answer because then they say, well, since you know what it is, you probably have a use for it. And they end up coming to the house. So I think it's important that for all of you, I'm not channeling prepper stuff, but remember, 1 is none and 2 is 1. So if you have 2 cables, you'll be able to find at least one of them when you actually need it. So you should have 2 of everything. You should have 2 of those USB-A cables, those USB-D cables, the USBs, the USB-Cs. You probably have a bunch of those because that's the new stuff. Firewire, parallel Centronics cables, serial cables. So I'm going to bring some next month. And I'll have them all duplicately labeled in little bins. And you can just pick and take what you want. Okay, anybody else? Going once, going twice? For sale and freebies? Okay, then we're going to move on to help desk. Okay, we're going to start with
Dick. Bill, you talked about VPNs in the past. Can you review briefly the need to use those or not need to use those when you're doing with banks? And
hypothetical situation. Let's say you're a university professor, okay, and you're dealing with students' work, and you need to connect to the university servers. The universities will have a server set up to do a virtual private network. So, okay, now this is where I use my fecal matter analogy. So, imagine the internet is a sewer, okay, not stormwater. We're talking the real mucky stuff, okay? And you need to send something through the internet, that sewer, to another place. Well, a VPN, for all intents and purposes, is a pipe. You got a flexible tube. You put a cap on the end. You shove it down your commode, and you just keep shoving it until it comes up in the other guy's commode. Okay, and then you uncap it, and you're sending your stuff through that tube, and that tube is in the internet, but your stuff isn't touching all that nasty stuff, all that fecal matter and other stuff. You know, discarded medications, okay? So that's what a VPN is. It's a virtual private network. It's your stuff is contained within that tube. It's prevented, people can't see what's in the tube. It's secure, and it's connecting you to another site. A VPN service is where they say to somebody, if you pay us money, we will let you connect to our VPN server. So you've got your own tube going to them. And then they connect to the internet from that point. So if you wanted to, let's say, one of the main uses of VPN is for watching television, entertainment stuff that's in another country, that you're not allowed to see this stuff. All right? So let's say, hypothetically, you're in North America and you really love Italian soccer and you want to watch all those local matches. Well, they've got it set up so that you can only watch those soccer games if you're in Italy or maybe the EU. I'm not quite sure how that works. So your tube is going to a server that's inside Italy. So as far as that Italy television streaming operation that's doing the soccer games over the internet, they think they're just broadcasting to just Italy. But it's actually coming through that tube back to you into North America. Or let's say I want to keep track of some of my relatives in Lincolnshire, okay, in the UK, and I want to listen to the local radio, Lincolnshire BB Channel 2, okay. Well, I can't do it if I'm in North America, even if I'm in Canada, because they sort of cut them off too. But if I have a VPN going to a server that's in the UK, my program running on my computer can listen to the stuff that's being broadcast, streamed inside Lincolnshire. And I can find out which one of my relatives just got thrown in jail. You know, which one of these folks is now mayor this year, because it rotates, the Herricks rotate who's going to be mayor in Lincolnshire, the main town. But that's what a VPN is for. So you have the most common one, which is a point-to-point VPN, and then you have the one where it's a VPN server, many people connecting to the same place using virtual private network, and then they connect just to the internet.
Is there a need to use it to pay bills with a bank?
No.
If you're at home.
If you're at home. Yeah, good point. Let's say I'm sitting in Starbucks. Or better yet, I'm in McDonald's, and I'm using their Wi-Fi. And suddenly I decide I need to make some stock portfolio trades. So I want to, you know, sell off my Costco and buy more Walmart or whatever. Okay. And it's, you know, a couple $100,000 of stuff I'm going to do. Well, if I'm doing it on McDonald's Wi-Fi, okay, I don't know what other sort of equipment they got attached to their network that might be able to record stuff, even down to like keystrokes, you know, because you're putting in that password, you're using a keyboard to do it. Well, they may have something where they can record that if I'm using their Wi-Fi. So in that sort of a situation, you would use a VPN because it's going directly from your machine so that when it goes through their Wi-Fi, it's already in that VPN tube. It's already secured. They can't get at it. They can't see what's in it. They can't sniff it. They can't spook it. They can't spork it. I think that's the other term. I'm not quite sure what it means, but it has to do with hacking. Sporking. So somebody just told me the other day. So, does that help?
Yeah, right.
Okay. So, if you travel a lot, okay, and you use Wi-Fi in restaurants a lot, and you're going to be sending somewhat secure data, you know, if you're at a Hyatt or a Hilton and you're using their Wi-Fi to connect to the internet, it's not, you don't know. You don't know if it's secure or not. And as I learned in my training a long time ago, when you don't know, you do know. You know it's insecure. So you know that you have to maintain secure practices.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have a question for you, though. Did you ever pull the trigger and buy a new iMac? Or are you still...
No, I haven't. I haven't yet.
Okay.
I changed my internet from the old Apple, what's that?
The Apple time capsule in airports?
Yeah, airport.
Okay.
Went to Eero.
Okay. Okay, that's good. You did good.
Yeah.
You did good. Did you do that yourself, or did you have some help?
I had a little help from my son.
Okay. Always good. Makes them feel like, you know, there's a reason why you send them to school. Okay. Anybody else have something for help desk? How about out in Zoom land? That's it. Well, okay. Then I'm going to say, you know, help desk. We're done. So, I'm looking at my clock here. It's 10:25. Is it too early to adjourn and do a raffle?
All right, so today I'm gonna move in a minute. I know I'm standing in front of the screen. I'll get back to normal here in a minute. Today we're gonna talk about the cloud.
Thank you very much.
We'll start with a little general discussion about the cloud more generally, and then we're going to shift to the iCloud and talk about some very specific things that you may want to know if you want to use iCloud. Now, I know a lot of you do not use iCloud. There's lots of reasons not to use iCloud, but this is information for you to just know about in the case that you might want to use it for specific things. And I'll cover some of those things in the later part of the presentation. We're going to just jump right in. So to start with, I just wanted to tell you what I'm using to do this presentation today. First thing you need to know is I'm trying to use the latest version of iOS and the latest version of Mac OS. In the case of iOS, we're going to use 14.7.1, which is the latest that's been released. In the case of iOS, I'm using the latest version of Big Sur, and I don't remember the numbers, but it's the latest version. So that's when you see screenshots in here, that's where they're coming from. If you're using older versions, there will be some small differences, but it should pretty much apply, right? So there'll just be some small changes. Okay, so what is the cloud? When somebody says to you, my data is in the cloud, or I'm using the cloud for my computing, or somebody says cloud computing, what does that mean? Any thoughts, ideas what that may mean? What do you think it means? What does it mean to you? Anybody?
Synchronization between devices.
Okay, it could mean synchronization. Sometimes the cloud is used to synchronize data across devices. That's clearly one definite application. Other ideas?
Remote locations.
Remote locations.
For storage.
For storage. Well, we're going to talk about, it means all those things. Here's a broad definition. I love this definition. It says the cloud refers to servers that are accessed all over the internet and the software databases that run on servers elsewhere. So when somebody tells you, I'm running Dropbox. So I got all this data stored in Dropbox. Well, that means there's a server somewhere out there, probably multiple servers, scattered across the globe where your data is housed so you can access it remotely. The same thing could be said of a number of applications, but it says by using cloud computing, companies can have not just physical location savings, but they can also run software and applications on their own machine. So I can sit here on my computer and run something in the cloud that's running elsewhere, and it's not tying up resources on my computer. It allows me to do that very effectively, and it could be really, really cost effective for big businesses. Here's some examples that I put on the screen. I've really got to figure out how to get rid of that. These are different types of applications that are cloud-based applications, and you may not think of all these as cloud services. The first one is Gmail. Gmail is really a cloud service if you think about it. How many have a Gmail account? A lot of you have a Gmail account. I don't have a Gmail account because I hate Gmail. But Gmail, we're not going to talk about that today. That's not the purpose of this. I shouldn't have done that. Gmail runs over the cloud. And when you log in with the Gmail app and you access your email, where's your email at? It's stored in the cloud. And so you're accessing it there. It allows Google to do some really cool stuff with their email service. It allows you to do some cool stuff. So that's Gmail. That's a type of cloud application. Another one is all the Google services. Does anybody use the Google apps, the various Google apps you use them? At work probably. Google apps can include things like documents, sheets, all those different apps that run. But this is another example of a cloud-based service that allows you to run it on your computer, but it's operating the service through the cloud, through the internet. Salesforce tools. Salesforce is a big user of the cloud. They use the cloud to maintain all their data and all their databases so that their customers can access those over the internet on whatever kind of computer they're using. See, one of the powerful things about the cloud is they don't care if you're running on a PC or you're running on a Mac or you're running on an iPad. It really doesn't matter because they run them over a browser. And so you can just run the application on whatever kind of device you're using because it's hosted in the cloud. So that can be really powerful for a lot of people and a lot of applications. Dropbox. I love Dropbox. I used Dropbox for years. I still have a Dropbox account. I don't use it as much these days, but Dropbox is just basically, this is not exactly true, but it's like a hard drive in the cloud. So it's a remote drive space. It synchronizes to, like what we was talking about, it's about synchronizing. It synchronizes on your local computer so that it's the same as what's in the cloud. It allows you to do all kinds of cool things where you can share cloud space, drive space. You can share files with other people that are stored there, and it can be quite powerful. And the last one's this thing I put down the corner, but just an example of an application that executes in the cloud that you can use to do some function, and that functionality that you want on your machine. This one's to draw and sketch. And so you can create drawings and sketches on your computer through this service that's operating in the cloud right in your browser. So these are just examples of cloud applications. There are hundreds of these things, and they're all over the place. And you probably use a lot of them, and you never thought of them as a cloud service. But they are a cloud service, or they're operated in the cloud. What I want to get across here is it's not something to be afraid of. The cloud can, this is going to sound kind of hokey, the cloud can be your friend. You can use the cloud to accomplish tasks that you may not be able to accomplish on your own computer. You can use it to access lots of data. It can be really powerful, and you can use it to help you accomplish things that you may have not thought about before. Now we're going to shift a little bit. That's the generic term cloud. I want to talk about a specific cloud service today, and that's iCloud. And what iCloud is, what it's not, how you can use it a little bit. We're not going to get deep into it, but I want to talk about a few things that I think you can find helpful in your use of iCloud should you decide to use it. Now, not everybody's going to use it, because some people are going to be a little bit nervous about it. I get that. But we're going to share what it does and how I use it a little bit. But mostly just talk about its features and functionality. So this is the definition that Apple gives. Man, I really got to get rid of that. But this is the definition Apple gives for iCloud. It says it's Apple's cloud solution for keeping your digital life in synchronization across your devices. So Apple clearly sees it as a synchronization functionality. They see it as a service to synchronize your data. That's Apple's number one, and this is right from iMore, but this is off of Apple's site. iCloud can store, sync everything from calendar events to photos, albums, your most recent vacation, all kinds of stuff. But it can synchronize all that stuff across devices. Everything you own can be synchronized across everything you have, as far as iDevice. Not everybody's going to use it that way, but that's what it can do. So its number one functionality, if you think of iCloud, is to synchronize your data, your stuff. Additionally, it's powerful for syncing a lot of third-party applications. So on your iPhone or on your Mac or on your iPad, you may have third-party applications that use iCloud to synchronize data to be used in that application. Can anybody think of examples of that? Some examples that I use a service that synchronizes not just my contacts, but I synchronize like passwords. That's what I'm thinking of, passwords. So I synchronize all my passwords so that when I log in to look at a password, I can look at it on my Mac or on my iPad or on my iPhone. If I make a change on my iPhone, then that password is synchronized across all my devices. So when I log in to look at it on my Mac the next time, it's updated to what I changed it to on my iPhone. Because if I didn't get those synchronized, it could be a real problem when I try to log in the next time on my iPhone versus my Mac or whatever. So I use things like 1Password, or there's another one I use called Secret, that synchronizes that using iCloud. There's a ton of applications, and you'll see some of those in a little bit, that use iCloud to synchronize their data. Does that make sense? Everybody's with me so far? So that's a real powerful thing. I love that capability of iCloud because it makes my life a little easier. What to do. Okay, so what kind of things are in iCloud? When I say, oh, it's stuck in the cloud, it's in iCloud, what's in there? This is a screen off of my devices. This is not inclusive of everything. These are system-related things that are related to things that Apple does. So that includes things like your photos or my photos. It includes things like mail. Your mail, if you're using iCloud's mail service, that stuff is stored in iCloud. Things like contacts. My phone address book is stored using Apple's Contact app. It's stored where? In iCloud. So that data is visible on all my devices. So when I log into my iPhone or my iPad or my Mac, I see the same contacts. That makes a lot of sense to me, but that probably makes more sense to some of them. Reminders. My reminders that I put into it when I add a reminder is stored in iCloud. And that way it can be shared. It could be stored locally. I could say, well, I only want to store that reminder on my iPhone. The problem is if you only store it on your iPhone, then if tomorrow I'm on my Mac or I'm on my iPad and I want to look at that reminder and check it off that it's complete, can I see it? No, because it's only on my iPhone. Maybe I don't have my iPhone with me. So that synchronization allows you to use any of your devices to see that same reminder. So reminders from the cloud. Notes. The Notes app, I love the Notes app. That uses the iCloud database to store that. You can store it in iCloud. Messages. So one of the latest changes that Apple made last year was they added this feature so that your messages can be synchronized over iCloud. Now that becomes really powerful if you're trying to use messages on your iPad, your Mac. So when you're using messages on your Mac, you can actually see all those messages that came through on your iPad, and it allows them to be synchronized, which not everybody wants to use that, because not everybody wants their messages synchronized on all their devices, but I do that, because I can always see all my messages on all my devices. Safari. Now, Google Chrome, we're going to take a little detour here. Google Chrome does a really good job of synchronizing your favorites and all those kinds of things. This is the way that Apple does it. They synchronize a lot of this stuff through iCloud. So Safari data can be synchronized through the system, including passwords if you're using Keychain. Stocks, home, your home app, so all your remote devices. We talk about smart devices that we have on our network. Game Center. If anybody here play games, I kind of doubt we play a lot of games. I don't play a lot of games. But you can synchronize your data for your games, so you can play them on multiple devices and it would be synchronized. Siri can use iCloud to store information. And Keychain I mentioned already. And then the last one that's really important. Now this is a screen off my iPhone. Your backup of your system. Your backups are stored in iCloud. So when you go buy a new phone, you can download that backup and restore it on a new device. It comes from here. So I'll show you something on that. I have a separate couple slides on that specific one. Next one's Apple apps. These are some of Apple's apps that you may use regularly. Keynote's a great example. There's a host of others. I got them all listed here. These are all the ones that I have on my iPhone and my iPad. So they store data in the cloud. So when I create a new Keynote, I can store that in iCloud and then share it across all my devices. Reminders again. And then this third-party group, that's a long list. I didn't even try to put it on the screen. That is a long list because I have a lot of apps that use iCloud to store their data. You don't have to do that, but I like to do it because it allows me to share that data across all my devices. You may not want to do that, but I do that. But it does take up space, which is always, remember, we'll talk about space in a little bit. But there's a game. I don't even know why this is on here because I never play it. Cut the Rope is a game. Dark Sky, that's a weather app. Dropbox, my AAA data. I don't know what Bake Shop is. So Barbie Magical, that's for my granddaughters. It's not mine. So you get the idea. Yeah, sure. So you get the idea. Those are third-party apps. And if you go into the iCloud screen and look at what's in there, you'll see the list of everything that's using your iCloud data. You may not even know it's using it, so you may want to look at that sometime. It's under your iCloud settings, though. What's it cost? This is probably one of the biggest things that causes people heartburn when it comes to iCloud. When you sign up for iCloud, you get 5 gigabytes free space, which is nothing.
Right.
That is just not enough to do much of anything. You could set up most people I know will set up their contacts, show you their address book, and maybe what's the other one, Kathy? Some people do their address book and calendar. That's a common one. Everybody always turns those on. But not everybody does it much else than that. But you have to think about that because if you want to share it across devices, this is where it does. And that's about all you're going to get in 5 gigabytes. You might get a backup of some of your devices, but you won't have multiple backups. So if you have several devices and you try to use iCloud to back them all up, you'll run out of 5 gig in no time at all. 1 or 2 backups will fill that up. So you have to think about that a little bit when you think about space. These are the prices. I'm not going to get into them. I'm going to talk about the whys and the wherefores. I'm sorry, John, I keep walking in front of you.
You're fine.
Their 2 terabyte version is $9.99 a month. 2 terabytes is a lot of space. I do a lot of photography, so I use 2 terabytes, and it's almost full. You can buy a 3rd terabyte for some price, I don't remember what it is. And then the other thing is you can get this as part of Apple One. Apple One is their new bundle where you can get a whole bunch of their new services as part of one price a month. And you know, if you use a lot of services, you can save a lot of money. I think I save like $10 to $15 a month because of the way I bundled, what bundle I selected. So that's just something that's out there that we're not going to get into today, but this is the prices for iCloud.
So when it gets full, does it just tell you full, or
It won't
does it start
shoot.
dumping stuff?
No, it doesn't start dumping stuff. It just stops. Like, for example, when you try to back up, it'll say you don't have enough space to do a backup. Or when you try to add pictures, you just won't be able to put them in there. If you're talking to you, the pictures. It just stops working. Yeah, Kathy?
With the backups, my neighbor said all of hers was full. And she backs up every day, but all the old backups still stay there. You don't need months of backup, right?
No. And Apple should be doing, you know, they've always done a really good job. They usually overwrite for the current one. Now, when you buy this one, I see a lot of people have this problem. They'll have, over the years, they'll have 3 or 4 iPhones because maybe they upgrade every 4 years. Mm-hmm. So in 12 years or 10 years or whatever, they've had 3. Well, those backups, when they went to the new phone, they did delete the old backup of the other phone, so those backups from older devices may still be in there. That can use up a lot of space. I've gone in and I can't tell you how many people's iPhones I've gone in and deleted old backups from old devices. Because when I create a backup tomorrow night, mine backs up every time I plug it in. When I plug it in and it creates a new backup, it's going to overwrite the backup for that iPhone as its default behavior.
You set it up that way?
No, it just does it that way. That's the way it comes. It should do that automatically. The only time it keeps the old backup, and now there's backups, it does some incremental backups data that you can look back in, but they're not causing you a problem. Where it causes you a problem usually is when you have other devices. Because you get a backup for every device. We can look at that if you have a specific.
No, I don't use the iCloud for storage. I back mine up on the computer.
So it does that pretty well. But I do know a lot of people have a problem with that. Most of the people, when they first find they have a problem with the space because they only have 5 gigabytes, is when they try to turn on iCloud backup because they'll quickly run out of space. My backups are 8 gigabytes a piece, I think, because I've got so many dang applications. So that can be a problem for somebody. All right. Any questions so far? I don't want to go too fast. Yes, Lenore.
Is iCloud the same as the iCloud Drive?
iCloud Drive is a piece of iCloud. It is the place where it stores files. So when you got, here's iCloud as this big little thing. It's got all those things, all those services I showed you. Well, one of them somewhere down on the list is iCloud Drive. You turn iCloud Drive on. So if I got a file, I'm creating a bunch of files, a text file, and I'm writing a note to Lenore. Hey, Lenore, here's how to fix whatever. I can store that in iCloud. It's a text file, and it would be stored in this thing they call iCloud Drive, which is just like another hard drive where you can store stuff.
I see.
It's kind of like Apple's version of Dropbox.
Okay,
For those that understand Dropbox.
thank you.
Other questions? All right. I get asked this one a lot. What about security? Is this secure? Will my data get ripped off? Is somebody going to go in and look at my files and figure out what I'm doing? What about, is it safe to store your income taxes on iCloud? Let's talk about that for a minute. First, I'm going to tell you, this, you can't probably see this, but it'll be in your individual, when you get this, when the email comes out. This is a list of all the various data types that are stored from Apple by default in iCloud. And then off the side, it tells you how is the encryption done on that file. There's 2 different terms you have to know. They can encrypt the data that's stored on iCloud, and once it's encrypted, then it's really safe. It's really high levels of encryption. It's very protected, very secure. But then you also have this issue, what happens in transit? As the data is going from your computer to iCloud, can somebody get it then? And sometimes you'll hear the phrase, that this data is stored in transit. They'll talk about end-to-end encryption. That means from point A, where you start this transmission, all the way through to the end, is it protected. This list tells you what data is encrypted in transit and what data is encrypted as it's stored on iCloud. And I'm not going to walk through all the whole thing. You can take this when you get home and look at it. It may bring up a bunch of questions that you may have. Here's iCloud.com. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then all this other stuff, and I'm just not going to dive deep into all of it today. It's really important when you look at a service that you're going to trust to store your data, whether or not the data is protected and how it's protected. There's some data, for example, that in the past Apple has always been, it encrypts the data, but they have the ability to access it. You may not want that. If it's end-to-end encrypted, then they don't have the keys. Then that's something they can't even access. So some of your data, like your health data, is very well encrypted end-to-end, and even Apple can't access it. But there's other data that, because people don't want to lose, like their photos, that Apple, if you ask them to, and you give them, you tell them how they do it, they can get into that. So that's the stuff you need to know. Questions?
You only have to worry if you're a celebrity and your password is password.
Yeah. Your password should never be password or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what's really in your iCloud account? What kind of data is really in your personal iCloud account? Now that may sound like a funny question because you think, oh, it's my phone book, it's my address book, it's my calendar data. That's what's in my iCloud account. How do you really know? And how do you know what's on which device can access it? Those kind of questions. This can really be confusing. So I'm going to tell you a few little things that I always look at when I'm asking myself this question. The first thing is, if you really want to know what is in iCloud, what data is really in your personal iCloud account, you want to start at iCloud.com. You do this on your browser, you log into iCloud.com, and all the apps are there, and you can actually access them and see what's really in the cloud. Because this is not stuff that's on a device, this is what's in the cloud. This is a great place to go if you want to look. Now you can access this because you want to use the data too. Like you can get in there, there's a calendar, there's a notes application, there's all these tools, and you can use all of them right here on the browser as a cloud service. I had a problem that lasted for a couple of years where Apple, my notes wouldn't work right. I couldn't get my notes to synchronize across all my devices. And it took a long time for Apple and the Apple engineers to figure out and solve this problem. But the way that we troubleshooted it was using this tool. We would log into iCloud.com and see what was in iCloud.com and then go over to my iPhone, log in there and see what was there and try to see where the differences were, and then they would run a bunch of diagnostics. And it was a long, drawn-out process. But the bottom line is this is a great tool for you personally to log in and see what's in your iCloud account, what kind of data is really in there. Now, it's only going to matter if you're using the service. If you're not using the service and it's all turned off on those sliders that we showed on the screen a little bit ago, which we'll come back to, then there's not going to be anything in here. So if you've got your calendar turned off on your iPhone and your Mac, and you go into here and look, there's going to be nothing here. But it's a great tool to look to see what's really in there and compare that to what's on your devices to see if, are my calendars really in here? Does that appointment with Mary Jane, is that on the calendar in here? Because it's not showing up on my iPhone. And it may be because it's not in the cloud at all. So these are some devices. When you think about your data and you're trying to look at your data, understand what's in the cloud, these are some things I ask myself when I'm trying to digest this information. First thing is, which device is actually using that iCloud service? Do I have that service turned on my iPhone, on my iPad, on my Mac? So those sliders that we have with the green sliders earlier, if I want to use my calendars on my iPhone, I probably turned that on because I want it to be synchronized to iCloud maybe. But if it's turned off and I start adding calendar events and it's turned off on my phone, guess what? They're not going to be in the cloud. And they're not going to be shared with those other devices. So if your expectation is that you're sharing calendar devices, calendar information across all your devices, you want to know which ones are turned on and which ones are turned off. This becomes especially important with photos. If I tell my iPhone, don't share your photos with iCloud, just keep them locally, then I go to my iPad and I want to see those same photos. I don't care what the iPad has to be turned on too, but if they're not turned on to use iCloud for photos, you're going to see them there. They're not going to be there. They're only going to be on the devices that are able to use iCloud to see those specific photos that you want to share across devices. Does that make sense? That's rule number one for me. Number two, you can always, like I said earlier, log into iCloud.com and confirm your expectations. Is the information that I think is in iCloud what is really there? I've got my calendar turned on my iPhone. Why isn't it showing up elsewhere? You can always log in and look to see what's really there. So use this as a tool to check yourself, to make sure that what you think is going on is really going on. Then compare that data. Make sure that data makes sense, that it looks right. And check it on all your devices, not just one, but check everything. Make sure it's turned on or it's turned off the way you think it is, and that the data is what you think should be there, and using these tools. Now, this is kind of taking a jump sideways. Photos is a unique case. Photos causes a lot of grief for a lot of people. And there's a few ways it can cause a problem. But one of them is this little feature that I will take a picture. We'll look at a picture in a few minutes. I probably should just wait till then, but I'll go ahead and mention it now. You can tell your iPhone to optimize storage on your iPhone so that it doesn't take up a lot of space for your pictures. I'm going to tell you a real life example of this. I have approximately 10,000 photos in the cloud because I love to take pictures. And as a retired guy, I think of myself as a photographer. Notice I said I like to think of myself as a photographer. 10,000 pictures will not fit on my iPhone. I have a large amount of memory on my iPhone, but there's no way I could buy an iPhone with enough storage to store the full resolution of 10,000 pictures. But I like to share my pictures a lot with a lot of people. And so I need to have them where I can access them, so I store them in iCloud so that I can share those. It's kind of like my show and tell of what's going on. I stole that term from George. It's my show and tell of my photos, and I like to share them. And so I want to see what they are. So what Apple does is they optimize the photo. You select this. You can say, I want to optimize the storage of the device, the pictures on my phone. So I want to see what all 10,000 pictures are going to be, what they look like, but I don't want all the data. I just want enough so that I can identify them and don't put any more on there. So all 10,000 pictures that I got can be seen on my iPhone or my iPad, but it doesn't take up near the space. It takes up much, much smaller amount of space because it only stores a thumbnail image on the device. The big size pictures are stored in iCloud and they're full resolution. Big deal. So when you start talking about what's on your device, this setting can really affect what really is on your device because you may not have the full image. You may think you have a big picture on your iPhone, but if you've got this feature turned on, you may only have a little bit of that data. It's not the full thing, yes.
How do you set your iPhone so that you don't have the big...
I'm going to show you that in the next couple slides.
You don't show us how to get the
Now, are you
smaller.
saying that the resolution then is reduced? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
very low resolution.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
When you're looking at that little dinky picture, you can tell what it is, but it's not near the data.
Okay.
It's really small amount. And then when I open the picture, when I want to look at it, it pulls it down from the cloud real quick. So you have to also remember that's using data. So if you're out on your cellular plan and you're downloading a bunch of these pictures, you can use up a lot of memory. Yes?
Where is my data has bothered me on several occasions because these centers go down every once in a while. And with ransomware, centers are being shut down until they pay a fee.
Yeah.
When you have business files or consulting files stored on the iCloud, are they shared? Is there a redundancy that
There's redundancy
not
across
everything goes down at the same time?
There's redundancy across multiple servers. But nothing's perfect in this world. I mean, all the biggest people in the world have been hit with downtime when they've had downtime for a host of reasons. Now, my experience with Apple has been the downtime is very minimal. I can't think of the last time it was a problem. I've always been able to access my data. But that's something you have to think about. When you're looking at who you want to use for your cloud data, you want to look at their uptime, how much, and how, if they had problems with ransomware or whatever. So you want to think about that. But Apple has been really good about that. They're big enough and enough money that they tend to be able to deal with that. But it's something to think about. And no question, I wouldn't say it's not something to think about. I've never had a picture that I wanted to get that I couldn't get because Apple was down. But I know they have been down. They've had a problem once every so often where they've been down for a little bit of time. So Laura, did you have a question?
It wasn't on photos, I'm sorry.
Okay. iCloud capacity, we've already talked about buying iCloud space because capacity comes at a cost. This is an individual decision, and it depends on what your priorities are in life, and priorities of everything. So for me, access to photos is very important, so I'm willing to pay that $10 a month, which is actually cheaper than that because I buy it as a bundle. But I want all those 10,000 photos to be available to me. But your choice may be, oh, there's no way it's worth $9, $10 a month. I don't even want to pay anything. I just want the 5 gig plan. That's cool. That's what you want to do. Just recognize you're not going to be able to store 10,000 pictures, and you may not care about 10,000 pictures. That's unique to me. Lastly, as you're thinking about this as iCloud for me, do I want to use it? You have to look at all these combinations of issues, and probably some that I haven't even listed, because it's a very personal decision. And each person is going to have a different use for their device that's going to dictate how they want to use the cloud. I would argue that iCloud is secure and it's cost effective. But cost effective is relative to the use. It's cost effective relative to how I use it. It may not be for you.
All right. What I'm confused about is that I now have a new computer and it automatically has a lot of things turned on iCloud. So my question is, what things does Apple believe need to be in iCloud to work efficiently on my computer? Like mail and contacts, and I noticed it has Safari here, it has Siri, it has Keychain. I mean, do I need to have any of these turned on?
It depends on how you use your computer. I turn them on. Here, let me back up a bit. So first of all, Apple is, when they decide what to turn on, they have some defaults that if you set it up as a new computer, here's their default settings, which is what they think, but they're going to think of it from a standpoint, they're not thinking about saving you money. They're thinking about what services can I get her to use. Okay. So that's Apple's view. It's going to be a very Apple view. From your perspective, you have to think about it. Now, if you're setting your computer up and you're restoring from a previous version, it's going to take the settings you had on your previous device and put those on your new device. So somebody that buys a new Mac that maybe doesn't have any history is going to get a bunch of default stuff that they're going to have to go in and turn that stuff off.
But don't I need to have, like, Safari on if I want it?
You don't have to.
I don't have to.
You may not want to share your Safari information with any other device. And I don't remember what's on the Safari iCloud space, but you may not want all those things. You can turn it off. It'll work without it turned off. It just may not allow you to have flexibility across all your devices to have them configured and set up the same way.
I see.
When I go in on Safari on my iPad and I start typing some website, well, let me do a better example. I have a bunch of windows that are open all the time. I've got, especially in the new version of iOS that you're going to see in the next couple of weeks, iPad OS. I have a way I use my device that I like my device set up in Safari. When I get into Safari, no matter what device I'm on, this is how I want it to look and run. Okay. And if I make some changes on this device, I want it to be the same on that device.
I see.
That's important to me because I think it makes me more efficient. So I have it turned on because I want all that data saved in iCloud so that it's the same across all my devices. But you may only use your Mac. You may not care about any other device. So you may want to turn that off. That's just an example of devices sharing data with other devices through iCloud, in this case Safari.
Now, I'm using notes here for this meeting. Does that mean that if I called up my notes on my phone, then the same notes would be there?
If you have them stored, if you've got them stored in iCloud, you've got iCloud turned on,
Yeah.
then they will show up on all your devices. They will synchronize. You can pull tonight when you get home. You can pull up on your iPhone and read your same notes.
Now you got to go into each device though and have that.
iCloud has to be turned on all your devices. You have to have enough space.
Okay.
And you have to turn it on all the devices.
But I don't need it to act appropriate. I mean, I could just do it and
You can
just
do
have it
without
on my.
Yeah, but it would only be visible on one device.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Just as a question, if you had it on, say, your laptop and phone, but you've got 3 other computers or something running or whatever, you have it on that. What does that do to the space that you're using on the cloud?
The space will be shared across the devices. So, for example, in the case of Nora's note that she's taken from this meeting, she's got this note that takes up some amount of space in iCloud. The fact that her iPhone and her Mac and her iPad or whatever other device she has, and you can do it on Windows too, by the way. There's an application to use iCloud on Windows. But the data is only one piece of data. It's just shared, the same piece of data is shared across all the devices. So you're not using extra memory to put that on all the other devices. They're all sharing the same piece of data, this chunk of data. So you're not paying extra for that. Just the fact that you're storing on iCloud, you got this one chunk of data, and if you got lots of chunks, they can add up.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, here you go there.
Yeah. The other thing is, I think it was somebody here explained to me also, like, for example, if you really only want to keep, like, your tax information on one machine, that's the way you do it. How you select.
Yeah. But you want to think real hard about where you store your tax
Yes, I agree.
I mean, not very many people are going to want to store their tax records in iCloud or Dropbox or any kind of cloud.
I know.
Because that's such...
Really sensitive.
I'll use sacred as the word. It's this very unique. And so you have to think about what you're willing... While I think iCloud is very secure, I don't know that... I would never tell somebody, I recommend you store your tax documents there, even though you can't access them on your devices. It's just a fact.
Well, and like Quicken, that's one of the options as far as saving.
Yes.
So you got to watch out. So
yeah, very much the case. And so you have to think that through. And you have to have you probably have your own cases for why you want to develop your storage plan for how you store what you store. But just think about it real carefully when you start putting it in the cloud. Yeah, George.
In Nora's case, where she's got a lot of buttons turned on, if she turns any of them off, is she going to inadvertently lose something she didn't think she was going to lose?
I know where you're going. Let's talk about that. This is important.
That's a good question.
This is an important question. And it varies depending on what devices you're talking about. So let's use photos as an example. And I don't remember if that's the next screen. We'll come to it in a minute. Let's come back to that question. Because I have a slide that I think will help us talk about that. Now, I put some things here, I slide in here about iCloud backup. People ask me all the time, well, what's stored in iCloud backup on my iPhone? When I do this backup, what data is stored? This is from Apple. So this is a list, and I'm not going to go through each line by line here. This is what Apple says they store in iCloud. iCloud backups are really important. Now, there are other ways to deal with this. There are some third-party apps, and I don't know if you use any over at the school, but there's some apps like Amazing and some others that will do backups where you can control the backup a lot more than you can in iCloud. iCloud just has a set, here's what we're going to store. The backup happens automatically every time if you have it turned on, it happens automatically every time you plug it up. Bang, the backup happens, it's done, and then the next time you need the data, it's there. You're safe. I use iCloud backup because I am very worried about my data. I highly recommend it, but it does take up space and size, and you just have to think about it. You probably would want to buy the cheapest plan and get the 99 cents a month plan if you're going to use a lot of backups on a lot of different devices, because it at least gets you something where you can store 50 gigabytes worth of data, or terabytes, or whatever it is.
Yeah, 50 gigabytes.
So this is a list. I'm not going to go through it, but there's a lot of stuff in there, and Apple stores all that stuff so you can access it. It's saved. Now let's get back to photos for a minute, because this is George's favorite subject, and I want to talk about this a little bit. So this is off my Mac, and I'm going to talk about what each of these things mean, although we've done one of them already. And then we'll talk about what happens when you turn devices on and off and that type of thing. So the first feature is iCloud Photos. iCloud Photos is exactly what it says. It says I want my photos stored in the cloud. Or no, I don't want my photos stored in the cloud. When does this matter? This only matters if you want your pictures shared across all your devices. If this is off, it just stays on that one device. If it's on, it goes right up to the cloud. And then any other device that is turned on can also see those photos. It's pretty fast. I've spent this week, every evening it feels like, going to graduation, high school graduation, 45th anniversary. Yes, I'm old. So,
you are.
I know, I'm not old. But we went to this party, and I took a ton of pictures with my DSLR, but I also took some pictures with my phone. Now, why am I telling you this story? Because when I take those pictures with my phone, guess what happens as soon as I get done taking the picture? It goes right up to the cloud. And then guess what? This is the way I use my device. I just want to use this as an example. You shouldn't have to do this, but this is the way I do it. I have a Mac at home that's plugged in and running all the time, 24/7, which is a little bit insane, just the way I use it. But as soon as that picture pops up in the cloud from wherever I'm at, I was at a country club last night over by Urbana, Ohio. The data went to the cloud, and then moments later, it downloaded to that Mac at home, put it in the Photos app on the thing, and then those pictures were immediately backed up to an off-site location for backup.
Yeah.
So that my pictures are very protected. I have them stored now in multiple locations. That feature allows that to happen, period. If I go in and I turn that off on my Mac at home, and I flip that switch off, then the Mac at home would no longer have ability to get to those pictures because they wouldn't be available to them, because iCloud would not be available to it. It would only see the stuff that's local. Then when I go in on a device, let's say I go in on my iPhone, and I see a picture because I took a bad picture, just blurry, and I delete it on my iPhone. If the iPhone's connected and I delete it on my iPhone, it'll delete that picture from the cloud. And if all my devices are turned on, it'll delete it on everything. So you have to be aware of that. When you delete it, it's not going to just delete it on one. It'll delete it eventually from everything as soon as it synchronizes.
Rick,
Yeah, George.
Turn that off. What are the two options you get? I read them multiple times, and I understand English, but I didn't understand what the implications were.
When you turn what off? The iCloud, the top one?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
And that was maybe on the same version.
Yeah, I don't remember there being two there. There's two. I'll pull up another screen here in a second. There's two under optimized, not optimized, and there's one other one. But
it was something like you'll either download whatever's on iCloud, or else you'll be deleted. And that's what I.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. This is a different thing. But when you turn this off, it will ask you if you want to download the originals from iCloud. So let's say, for example, you've got a whole bunch of pictures stored up in the cloud, but you want to turn iCloud off. It will, I think this is where it asks that. When you turn this feature off, and I'll have to confirm this, it actually will go in and says, hey, do you want me to download the originals to this phone?
Which has memory implications.
Which has huge memory implications. Because if you've got iCloud, let's use an example from George. I've got a device, my Mac, where I've got 1,000 pictures stored in iCloud. I log in momentarily on my iPhone. It downloads a bunch of those pictures to my iPhone, taking up all kinds of space now on my iPhone because I've got them not optimized, so it's storing the full-size images. That's got implications. But now I've got things trying to synchronize. Then I say, well, I'm going to turn it off on my iPhone. Well, when you turn it off, do you want those pictures to stay on your phone? Do you want to get, because they're going to try to delete from iCloud. If you don't turn it off, if you say no, just delete them, then they're going to delete on your Mac, they're going to delete on your iPhone, they're going to disappear everywhere. You may not think that's what you want to happen. You just wanted to take them off your phone. You didn't want them to go away from your Mac. But because everything's connected to the cloud momentarily, you deleted them there and you said, yeah, go ahead and delete them. Guess what? You lost your pictures. They are gone everywhere. So you have to really, when you start turning this feature particularly, when you start turning this thing on and off, you have to think about what is it really doing to all my devices? What's it doing to my pictures on all my frickin' devices? I mean, it can really make you mad.
So there's no way to go one direction. You can't, like you, I have terabytes of photos.
You've probably got lots, I would imagine.
And I have them on my desktop on a separate drive. But if I were to turn on iCloud, you're saying all that information would go to all my devices. Is there any way to say?
If they're in Photos, they have to be in a Photos app.
Yeah.
If you've got them stored in your hard drive and they're not in the Photos app, it's not going to pay attention.
No, this is in Photos.
Okay.
So, but there's no way to say only sync one direction. You can't.
You just have to think about the sequence. So, for example, I've got a library on my Mac, George. I got a library on my Mac. Not picking on you. I got a library on my Mac that's got this 1,000 pictures. I'm just going to use 1,000, and it's connected to iCloud, or it's not connected to iCloud. But I've got them in Photos on my Mac. You turn it on, it'll only go one direction. We'll upload them to the Photos. There's going to be a ton of them over there. Whether they appear on your other devices depends on if the other devices have Photos turned on or not. Now, that's not going to answer your question completely, but it does say I can control what's going up to iCloud by what devices I turn on what pictures in. If I have a bunch of pictures on my iPhone, and a bunch of pictures on my app, on my Mac, and a bunch of other pictures on my iPad, but none of them are synchronized. When I turn this on each device, they'll go to the iCloud, and then as I turn the other devices on, they'll start synchronizing across all devices.
And it seems to be an additive process where you get the maximum number of pictures.
It's going to go for everything that's in the iCloud.
Everything that's from any of the devices.
Yeah, it's going to try to, as you turn them on, it's trying to combine all your pictures into one library. Because there's only one library. There's only one database for your pictures. So now you've got all these devices out there, and every time you turn one on to iCloud, it's going to take all those pictures, stick them up there, but it's also going to take all those other pictures and bring them down to your phone.
I found, and I'm not sure on this, it may not account for duplicates. You may end up with duplicates of the same picture.
Apple was doing some work there, and I've had some success with this where they tried to get rid of duplicates. I wouldn't say it's perfect, and I'm not sure where it's at right now. I don't know what the current state of that is. But for a long time, they did talk about that, and they did try to manage duplicates. I've got duplicates on my phone, and I'm almost positive there's still duplicates. But I don't, out of that 10,000 pictures, I don't know how many of them are duplicates, but I know I have a few.
You might have modified maybe original, and so you got
Could be a
two of the
small
same one because you did a little.
Yeah, and I do that all the time.
I
I'm
know.
really bad about it. In fact, sometimes I add a duplicate because I want to see them side by side, and I get a little messy. So, John.
So there is no way to set up the cloud so that it's got segmented folders like iPhone photos, iPad photos, computer photos.
No.
Okay.
You can create albums. You can create albums, and you can have an album called iPhone Photos, and they would show up, but every device is going to see them.
Yeah.
You would see that library of iPhone Photos on every device. So, which may be all right, but you would know which ones belong to your iPad. But it's not going to just store them just on your iPhone. It doesn't have a setting that says, only store these pictures on my iPhone, because it's trying to synchronize them across devices. That's what it's trying to do. Think about it for what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it so you can see all your pictures on all your devices. That's what they're trying to do. And what you're describing is a segmented system where you just look to back up your pictures through your iPhone here. Now you could create a separate iCloud account for each device and store them that way, but that's kind of not the purpose.
So is there any way to say, I only want to synchronize certain albums or something
No,
like it?
it doesn't all of them. There's no,
all or nothing.
Apple doesn't drop, Apple's the one, some people think this is a problem, some people don't, but Apple likes to keep things as simple as possible. And they just don't like to have a lot of switches and settings. If they can just do it all, they'll just do it all.
Well, like in 1Password, you can choose which device is the master.
They have vaults.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you can choose which one is the master so that you don't accidentally overwrite that.
That's not the way iCloud works for photos. Yeah, George.
George,
We'll go back here and
one more nuance on the duplicates, because I had many iterations, unfortunately, back and forth.
Yeah.
I started out with about 3,000 pictures in iCloud. Before I was done, I had 12,000 I had to deal with because going back and forth, screwing things up.
Yeah.
They just kept dumping those in the recently deleted files, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, recently deleted. Yeah, you have to think about it. We didn't talk about recently deleted, but there's a folder called recently deleted in your photos, and you can put it'll keep this for 30 days. So you have to think about that when you start deleting and when you start to do things. So it can get kind of messy. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm uploading pictures from some drive to my iPad, and I did forget to switch off the iCloud storage, but I don't want to clutter up my iCloud, and I attempted to switch off the iCloud connection, and it tells me that I will lose, I don't know, hundreds of pictures. Now, does that mean I'm losing them on the iCloud, or would I also lose it on my iPad?
Yeah. Yeah. Now there's a you have to watch that statement, because when you delete them on your iPhone, if they're in the cloud and you turn it off, it should be asking you if you want to delete them or not. And if you say no, leave them in the iCloud, it should leave them in iCloud. And I don't remember the exact wording of that. I'll have to look at that.
That wording is very confusing to me.
The wording can be confusing, and I'm not going to do it live because I don't want to make a mistake. But you flip that off. If you say the wrong thing, if you answer this wrong, you could delete everything in the cloud that's on your phone. And this gets people in trouble, so you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that, maybe sometime we can look at that live when we're not going to have time today, but that's an issue, and you have to be careful. That sounded like some kind of animal.
That was the iPad.
And where was the other question? There was another question.
I was trying to get the around the. You talked about you fold up all your pictures on your iPhone and using a lot of memory and all of that, and then. I don't want 10,000 pictures on my iPhone. I don't think it would even take it, but. But you can't delete them because that deletes them from the cloud. So can you just send them back to the cloud for safekeeping? That was his question, sort of, but I didn't understand the answer.
If you want to delete, if you turn iCloud off, that's another whole case. But if you have an individual picture, when you have optimized storage turned on, then it manages that space based on how much space you have on your iPhone. It does an incredible job of not consuming much space. And I don't know how they do it when you look back 10,000 pictures ago, you would think that with that many pictures, it would be using a ton of space. But it's not using hardly any space at all. So they're very smart about how they make a decision for which ones to store how much data so that your space available on your iPhone is okay. I just wouldn't worry about it. I know that's not going to be a satisfying answer to some people. But if it's a picture that's there, I wouldn't delete it unless I really want to delete the picture from everywhere. Because it's managing that very, very particularly. And Apple does a really good job. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I think they do a really good job of managing that space. So I would not delete it because that just increases your potential problems. If you want to keep it on other devices. Now, if you don't want it anywhere, then I would delete it, which is the way I do it. I don't want it anywhere. The only time I delete is when I want it gone everywhere. I don't say, well, I only want it on this device, because it doesn't work that way with iCloud. It's trying to keep everything everywhere. Yes, Kathy?
A few years ago, I always understood that the iCloud was a backup, and everything was on my computer. But when I took iCloud and shut it off, it said, do you want to back everything up? And I did, but didn't know why. And then I found out after a panic call to Mark that all this stuff was on the cloud that I had cut off. Yeah. Nothing was on my computer.
Yeah.
Now, is that what you're talking about? If you cut off the iCloud on anything, all my files, my whole computer was being backed up.
Yeah.
And I went into a panic. Then the thing was, like Mark told me, I had to take all the stuff that was from the cloud back up on my computer, and I had to go and put it all back.
Yep. By the way, that's true. A side note: if there's a picture I wanted to delete, but I wanted to keep it for some reason, like I got an album. I did some photography for somebody. I did some family portraits. I noticed the other day I still have this huge library of pictures and they're big pictures because they're really high resolution pictures, they're still in my iCloud. I don't want them there because they're just taking up space and they don't matter to me. I mean, I care about them as people, but I don't need those pictures taking up space in iCloud. So what do? This is exactly the problem you're talking about. I want to save these pictures. I want to keep them around, but I don't want them taking up iCloud space or space on my phone or whatever. So the strategy I use is I export those photos to an external place, some safe place where I can store them, and then I delete them from iCloud, from every device. I still got a copy of them because I want to keep it around, but it's kind of put away so I don't think about them anymore.
Is it like a standalone hard drive?
It's a standalone hard drive that also backs up somewhere else in the cloud.
Yeah,
but not iCloud.
Yes.
It's a cheaper place to store. So does that help at all? To me, that's the way I manage that problem. That is exactly how I manage that problem. Because I do have that problem. We got pictures from graduation parties when we were doing this. I do the photography for their party, multiple parties. They get together Sunday morning to repent for all the drinking. So I take a lot of pictures of that. We had 900 pictures from the last one and 900 some. These are high resolution pictures. But I don't need to keep those on my phone. I love these people to death, but I don't need to look at their picture all the time. Whereas some of the other pictures I take, I really do want to see all the time. So guess what I do? I do exactly what I just said. I take them off my phone. I store them on this remote place. I put them away. I never look at them again until the next 5 years later when they're having another party and they want me to give them a drive with all their old pictures so they can put them on the screen and show everybody. So that's how I manage that. Yeah, one more and then we're going to move on.
I don't want to get going down a rabbit trail, but the discussion you and I had was show and tell. How do you show those pictures to people? You scroll. I see a lot of people at McDonald's just flipping through thousands of pictures trying to get a picture. Or you can search.
I'm going to talk about that.
Okay.
This is the next thing on the list here.
Okay.
Albums is really important. There's two types of albums in iPhotos, and we're not having a lesson on iPhotos here, but I do want to mention this. You can put pictures into albums by any verbiage you want. I have one called Pets. We got a new puppy coming. We're driving west this week to go pick up a new puppy. I'm insane. So, I got this album that's just pictures of pets I've had or currently have. And I put all those into an album. And when I want to show those as sharing pets, I go to that album of pets. I got another album for pictures of eagles that I've taken. I go to that photo album of eagles when I want to talk about eagles with a friend because I take a lot of pictures of eagles. And I pull that up. I go right to that album. I can show them just pictures of eagles. So I create albums that help me to put things of common interest that I think I will want to share. Now, every so often I'll come
Is that in the Photos app or the iPhotos app?
Both. There's no iPhotos anymore. That's gone. But it's on the
I still
iPhone.
have it on one of my iMacs mobile computers.
You can't get it anymore.
I go back to albums, clear back to 2000.
Well, I moved all that stuff into iPhotos. But you can, I'm into Photos. But in the Photos app, you can create albums. Now, you can also create a separate type of album called a shared album. And I think this is eventually going to go away. But shared albums are albums that I want to share with friends. So when we have an event with family, we all get together and do something. We go to the zoo together, my kids and my grandkids. We go to the zoo. Everybody in the family takes a bunch of pictures. And then we create this thing called a shared photo album, which is also an album. And if you turn that on, shared photo albums happen. Then you can share that album with all your family. They can add their pictures, you can add your pictures, and you can selectively decide what pictures are in there. And I can show and tell that album because it's in there by name. And I
like reunions, that's a great way.
I do that for reunions, that type of thing.
So does that mean everybody's got that on their iCloud accounts?
Yes. Yes. All right, let's go on. We're running out of time. Yes.
And one more thing is that you can assign one image to several albums. Am I right?
Yeah.
So you can,
Yeah, you can have the same image in multiple albums, and it'll do that. And I don't know why it's not that big long. Here's it blocked up. There it went. Now this is the same screen on my iPad, and it's actually on my wife's Mac. So she's got iCloud Drive, Photos. This is all those apps we talked about earlier. This is how much space is being used. we have 2 terabytes. She's using 470 terabytes, which means I'm a hog because I'm all the rest of them, which we're not going to talk about. And this is inside Photos on the Mac. So in this case, we've got iCloud. This is what I talked about earlier. iCloud Photos is turned on and download the originals to the Mac. On my Mac, I download the originals because I want the full resolution so I can back them up and have them protected. I could turn that off and say use optimized storage, which is what I do on all the rest of my devices. Then it would only store those thumbnails, or it would just get the thumbnails as needed, but it would only do the thumbnails. And then shared albums, again, is another setting. The same thing appears on the iPad, the iPhone. This is what it looks like on the Mac with Mac's Big Sur.
Do you shoot in RAW?
I do.
So it uploads the RAW files?
Yep, it stores the RAW files. The new ProRAW format on the iPhone that came with last year's update is really cool because ProRAW on the iPhone takes a raw picture but still does the extra editing to get what Apple thinks is a good edit. Then you can go in and further edit that and tweak it and tune it and make it even better to your liking. And so I use that a lot. Almost all the pictures I take on my phone as well as on mine. Some of the photos, like the party last night, I did all JPEG for that. But if I'm going to something, I've done some weddings. I don't like to do weddings, but I've done a couple weddings. And there I always shoot raw. So the last thing I want to mention, we're going to jump through this real quick. Being careful when you delete, we talked about that. And then running out of space. You can run out of space in iCloud. And then you either got to decide you're going to get rid of something, you're going to par back on how you use iCloud, or you're going to punt. This is easy. Yes.
On your next bottom line there, when not logged into iCloud, only delete on the device. So
if
I'm in my iPhone and I don't know, what do you mean when I'm not logged into iCloud?
So let's say you got your iPhone set up and you have iCloud turned off. And I take a bunch of pictures.
How do you turn iCloud off?
There's that little slider.
Yeah.
Punch that, turn it off. You won't get, no photos are going to go to the cloud. That says that photos are going to the cloud if you turn that on.
Oh, that's on your device. These are the things that are going up to the cloud.
Yes.
You just
photos is one of the settings in there.
Then I can go ahead and delete some pictures in my photos, and it won't delete things in the cloud.
Right. If it's turned off. If you do not have iCloud turned on your iPhone, and you go out and take 100 pictures tonight, but iCloud is turned off, they're not being synchronized. They're just all local to your device. Then you go in the next day and say, well, I don't want these 10. Boom, 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 boom. They're only being deleted on your device because you're not connected to iCloud. But if you got iCloud turned on and you start deleting devices, different pictures, they're going to get deleted in iCloud too.
What happens if you turn it off, delete them, 2 days later you go back in and turn it back on? Does that tell iCloud to delete them?
This is your thing, right? Go ahead, George, tell me.
God, I don't know. It's risky.
It is risky.
Yeah.
The way I think it happens, and I never think this, if you've got a library and you saved them there, and then you deleted iCloud, turned it off, but you said keep the photos on my thing, and you kept them there, then you go in and delete a bunch of pictures, and you turn iCloud back on. I think you're highly likely going to lose the pictures because you deleted them, and they're not on iCloud no more. But I can't say that for certain.
We could petition Apple.
Yeah.
Going back to the earlier question about turning the iCloud off and then using the device. You can't just do that and walk away. You've got to make one of those two choices.
Yeah, you got to make a choice.
Which is download the originals, according to what you said, or else deleting everything from all devices. So
yeah, it can be dangerous. You got to think. It's a territory where I get very nervous. I get really nervous. Now, a few thoughts on iCloud Photos. Again, think about which devices, if you have multiple devices, which devices are connected to iCloud. When you're taking pictures and you want to know what's being stored in iCloud, you can always go to iCloud.com and look. Very powerful because you can find out what's really in iCloud. But just which devices are connected, some people don't want all their devices connected to iCloud. That's your decision, fine. Just know when you're taking pictures with your iPhone and the iCloud's turned off, they're not going to show up on your Mac. They're only going to show up on one device. And if that's the way you want to operate, cool. Just know what you're doing. Know how you're setting yourself up. Yes.
And that means, like, for example, we talk about, like we say, a reunion, you might have taken 3 or 4 of the same shot, but somebody wasn't right, so you can delete, like, maybe you took 3 and you can delete 2 and then put it on the cloud. That's another way you can manipulate.
You can manage that way. iCloud.com, I like to think of it as the truth. What's really in the cloud, what's really there. So use it. Don't be afraid to use it. And then we've talked about that delete thing. I talked about running out of space already, so I'm not going to go through that again. I'm already just thinking. Questions and answers, because I've covered a lot. We've talked for a long time. I didn't plan on talking so long, but we had time. Questions?
We already did a lot of questions.
We did a lot. Is there any more? Anything last minute before we call it a day? My email, you should all have it already. It'll be in the thing that comes out, rick@cartwright.com. If you've got questions, something we didn't answer, don't hesitate to call me or email me, text me, yell up, send up smoke signals, whatever works for you, I'll try to respond that way. I haven't used smoke signals for a long time, so I'm not sure I'll do a very effective job with that, but I'll try.